that. That's cool. That'll take us right to the end of the show. And okay, so we're talking about megalith cultures coming out of Atlantis right before the first great cataclysms, of which there are three. If you buy into all this mythology, so their progress was the first immigration wave. Their progress was blocked by what we now call the Yellow Sea. So then they moved southward along the coastlands of Asia. They find I brought this up before the break. They finally contacted the remains of the Lemurian culture. For some reason, the Atlantis worshippers seem to think the Lemurian culture were evil bastards, but which, if you study the Western esotericism, yeah, eventually they start talking about how Lemuria was sort of an enemy of Atlantis. Okay, so, but I mean, sometimes they existed in peace. It was sort of like Cold War, Hot War type thing, like with us and the Soviet Union. But okay, so yeah, the first immigration. Yeah, and I was talking about how the first immigration, the form of magic, they eventually started I guess they devolved a little bit in their travels. Because they ran across evil bastards from the remnant of Lemuria. I guess at that point the culture had devolved into a sort of a savage-like state because this first immigration from Atlantis started doing primitive type magic, jujuism, fanteism, uh, shamanism as well. More of a tribal type magic, tribal Stone Age type magic. And so uh, the initiation, when you get initiated into these types of secret societies or occult orders, it's called more of an initiation. It's called a second plane initiation. And now this gives its members access to the lower astral planes only. They operate on the plane of control and power over the physical plane. Uh, However, in the study of magic, these guys claim that it is necessary to have the powers of this plane, even if you are a sophisticated, civilized uh, Westerner and you want to study Western esotericism, Western sophisticated Western magic or applied psychology. You have to first tackle the powers of this lower plane, this type of shamanistic type of magic. So, yeah, especially for magical operations that involve the manipulation of the etheric forces or dense matter. It's like the introductory level, I guess. It is recommended that initiates who try to access this plane also have access to the plane above, because this is the plane from which the lower plane is controlled. Otherwise, one can be absorbed into the conditions of this dimension and ultimately go on a path of self-destruction. Because this is the. It's like you can become a cock rock god like Jim Morrison, but at the same time you'll fuck yourself to death. You'll drink yourself to death. Wake up in your own pool of vomit and choke on it and die. That's the kind of thing they're talking about. You can master these lower levels, but ultimately, if you do not ascend to the next level, then this kind of magic can destroy you because it's a very it taps into very, very primitive forces. So, the initiation of this plane employs a very primitive type of force, and it is one that can only be called subhuman or animalistic, whatever you want to call it. So, to place oneself under the control of these forces is a regression for civilized man. Upon this plane, now this is something I thought I came across this quote in a not a magazine, a book by Dion Fortune. She was like a, I guess, early 20th century, early 20th century occult writer, and this is just typical of the racism that these guys exhibit. But she says that upon this plane, the white man must function as master. He cannot meet its entities on equal terms. So it's like we have to, when we study magic, it's like we got to boss these guys of the lower astral planes around because we're white men. It's like, this is not what I believe, ladies and gentlemen. I'm saying this is what these occult schools teach. This is why Hitler became so racist, and he was heavily into the occult, and the Nazi. This is the kind of crap that was the driving force behind the Nazi Party. These mystery schools and secret societies, occult orders, are highly racist. They don't tell you at first, but the more you get into the study, you start realizing they really believe in white man's superiority. So, so the magic of this lower plane is like when people are performing seances and summoning spirits and shit like that. So you can see where this might get dangerous when, I mean, Ouija boards, that's a good example too. You can see where you guys have probably heard stories about the Ouija boards. You can see where this might get dangerous when this is put in the hands of the ignorant and inexperienced. So, the second great immigration moved in a more southerly direction. And of course, they leave Atlantis right before the second great cataclysm, seismic event, huge earthquake. And so they move more in a southerly direction because of the advance of the polar ice. Apparently there was some sort of ice age going on at that point. So these guys, this second immigration from Atlantis, they cross Central Europe and they move in an easterly direction until their course was barred by the uplands of Asia with their eternal snows of the Himalayas. I guess that's what they're talking about there, the Himalayan mountains. So they established temples at this place, and this formed what is called the Himalayan Center. It's what occultists call, quote, the Himalayan Center. And from here, the culture spreads down the river valleys, following the waterways, as primitive travel must. So all these cultures that exist along the rivers that flow out of the Himalayan mountains, they look to the Himalayan center for the inspiration of their religion. And it is from this second immigration from Atlantis that the wisdom religions of the East are derived. Hinduism, Buddhism, what have you, and whatnot. However, some of the sects are tainted by the influences of the first immigration culture. Just like the first immigration culture was tainted by the remnants of the Lemurian civilization. So, for the most part, a high degree of purity has been maintained in the inner orders of the second migration. Some of the most profound knowledge in the world is guarded in these mountain strongholds. The third great immigration comes right before the final cataclysm that utterly destroys Atlantis. And that's where I'm going to have to leave you, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's a teaser, but hey, I want to thank you all very much for being patient and bearing with me during my technical difficulties tonight. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And I want to say that tomorrow night, yeah, you got to check out the YouTube clips. Tomorrow night I'll be here from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Central Time in the United States of America. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a great night, and thank you once again. I will see you all tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Central. Woohoo! Ooh, love, love. I feel. All right, yeah, and good night to you, YouTube guys. Thanks for tuning in as well. Really appreciate it. Already logged out of the radio show, but and Doc Atomics, thanks for pointing me in the right direction, dude. Y'all have a good night as well. I'll catch you on the flip side.